the charter standard status is something that's inspired by well-run clubs that looks to raise standards, and through that, we've seen charter standard clubs grow by 27% rather than non-charter standard clubs. And it's led to a raise in standards within it, where over 2/3 of the clubs who are charter standard have seen a noticeable change in raising standards within the club, which has then led to a report of fewer cancelled fixtures, abandoned fixtures, because clubs feel more prepared, and which has obviously led to those things as well. So there are a few other benefits to a standard. So just to cover these very quickly again. So one of the main benefits of becoming charter standard is access to annual equipment. So new clubs attaining charter standard clubs will be sent 10 strike night footballs, and that was a picture of last year's strike football that was sent to clubs. And then annually, every time that you complete an annual health check, which is basically you're renewing your commitment towards charter standard process, each club receives 4 footballs every single year they complete that process. There's often also equipment and kit vouchers that are given to clubs once that annual health check is completed. So when you attain charter standard, you're sent 10 footballs that you renew. There's new football sent to you, and obviously, and also if you complete that by a certain date each year, then there's often access to kit vouchers with Kit Locker and other incentives to get that annual health check in each year by a certain date. That changes each year. And you'll see that from year on, once you do apply, that will be emailed to you directly. Other benefits of charter standard is access to funding. So this season, it's quite well known that funding across the sector has been reduced. There is less funding out there. Now, the 2 funding options up there are 2 internal funding pots that Berks and Bucks FA will be running this season. Now, can non-charter standard clubs apply for these funds? Yes, they can. However, we highly expect there will be lots of applications this year, and then won't be enough funding to cover all the applications we receive. So on the scoring matrix on how we award clubs, if there are 2 very similar applications from similar areas, one of the determining factors will be if that club is charter standard or not. So it will improve access towards funding. So just to cover these quickly, the BBFA Butterfly Fund is a fund that will be opening on December 1st. But because you've logged on today, I'm happy to quickly show you a sneak preview of what that fund will look like. So hopefully you can see that. The Butterfly Fund is essentially a club action plan that clubs sign up to complete. As a charter standard club, would be 3 tasks. As a non-charter standard club, there is an extra task that would be assigned to that club. And as you can see, the top one would be for non-charter standard clubs to attain that accreditation. So essentially, this fund, whilst it is open to non-charter standard clubs, once all the tasks are completed, every team that would receive this fund will be an FA charter standard club. Other than that, clubs choose 3 of these tasks, and I'll happily send all of these to you afterwards. But I just wanted to preview that is opening on December 1st, and as a club aspiring to achieve that status, this should be something that you want to look at. It's for £250, which will be payable once you've completed all of your tasks. And as I mentioned, you can choose any of these. So there'll be 1 from Group 1, and that would obviously be the top one. And then you can choose any other 3. And once you complete it, then you'd be access to that funding. The BBFA Boost Fund is a fund that will be running this year to help sustain clubs and help to grow clubs. So one of the casualties of funding this year is there will be no grow the game, there'll be no stay in the game funding. However, this will be here to help support clubs who are looking at sustaining certain age groups and also growing certain age groups. And that will be open in February 2021. So again, whilst non-charter standard clubs could apply for that fund, if we do get a lot of applications and inundated with applications, charter standard clubs, that may be the deciding factor on why a club is awarded and why one isn't. So again, that's a good reason of a benefit of charter standard. And the final one I'm going to cover is also access to digital assets. So this is just a selection of digital assets that I took from the pack that was sent out to any club that's awarded this status. You would be able to use this on promotion, you'd be able to use this on social media, onto emails, and this is just a little selection of some of the assets that are out there. There's actually lots of them, different colours to work against different backgrounds. So hopefully that just gives you a little taste. I've not really delved into the benefits of charter standard and essentially what it is, because I really want to move on to how to apply for charter standard status. So I split this into three different sections, and the first one is something to consider before applying to make sure that you have in place, which I've called criteria. So youth clubs have to have met the following criteria, and generally if you're affiliated you will have done this already. So the first one is obviously you have to be affiliated. So the majority of clubs that we'll have on there will be affiliated. If you're not currently affiliated, that's something you need to do straight away. You must have one team playing in an FA sanctioned league. That can be basically any of the youth leagues that are working across Berks and Bucks. If you have any questions on that, it might be a more individual one, feel free to add that to the chat. But yeah, you have to have a minimum of one team playing in an FA sanctioned league. And clubs must have a bank account set up in the club's name. So there is an exception for that. If you are a club with only one team, that it is not mandatory for you to have that. But if you have any more than one, so 2 upwards, you must have a bank account set up in your name. We do ask for proof of that. It doesn't need to be a bank statement or anything like that, just a letter from the bank clearly stating what the club's, what the bank, and also clearly visible with the club's name on there as well. So those 3 things, once they're in place, okay, then we'll look on to the next slide, which is the documents. So earlier today, I just sent you an email about an hour before starting this presentation. There are several documents that we would need to see before we could award charter standard status. The first one is the application form. It's a very simple form, which just basically, I think it's 3 pages in total. It's very easy to fill out, and it just states that you understand what charter standard is, checks off all those evidence that hopefully that you will have in place. Also checks off that you understand that the annual health check process, which is that annual commitment to charter standard status. That's the starting basis of any charter standard application. The next 3, as you can see, are in brackets, say adoptable. So clubs have to have this in place. However, if you don't, there is a template which I shared with you earlier today that you as a club can put your name to and adopt into your club. So that is club rules and constitution. When you affiliate, most clubs will have this already in place. I think it's a prerequisite of affiliating. A club equality policy and a club safeguarding policy. Again, a lot of clubs already have that in place, but if you don't worry, you can adopt those templates which I sent to you earlier. The other things that we need to see, one of the benchmarks of charter standard status is to show that you are a well-run club, and part of that goes into meeting regularly or as a club. So 2 things that we would like to see in regards to minutes. So the minutes of your most recent committee meeting, and also your AGM minutes as well. If your AGM was the last meeting you did, then I need to see the committee meeting minutes from the one before AGM. So in total, we need to see 2 sets of minutes. And then the last documentation that we would be looking for is a financial statement. I get a lot of questions on this regarding how in depth does the financial statement have to be. Usually, I've seen lots of different formats of this, including bank statements, which is by no means what we need to see. But generally, it is an agreed committee financial input, output, incomings, outgoings that are usually discussed at an AGM or at a committee meeting. So if that is included within those minutes, then that would suffice that need for the financial statement. Another question that I get a lot is, once we apply for Chartered Standard and attain that status, do we have to send this in every single year when we renew at the annual health check stage? The answer is no. You only have to do this once. Once you do it, then the annual health check focuses on different areas of the process. So this is basically adopting it once. You would let us know if anything had been renewed, usually again at that annual health check. So if you've made changes to your safeguard policy, best practice is just to send that in and we keep it on file. So that in the application form, you'll see that there's a checklist with all of those documents on there. So you just check it off once you've sent it in to me. The third section of how to apply, normally this takes the longest amount of time, is the qualifications. So that benchmark again of Chartered Standard status is being well run, and one of the being safe as well. And one of the ways that we do that is to ensure that there are qualified staff working with each of your clubs, each of your teams within your club. So as a youth club, there's certain criteria that need to be in place. The first one is that all named coaches have an in-date DBS. So that is anyone named against a team as a coach within your club. The second one is every team has a coach with an in-date FA safeguarding qualification. So usually that is the Safeguarding Children workshop that is held at BBFA. So previously, before lockdown, that's been a face-to-face qualification, and then coaches would then renew online with a recertification workshop that can be done, said online. Third one is every team has a coach with an in-date FA first aid qualification. Again, that's the emergency first aid qualification, which again before before lockdown was delivered face-to-face by Bucks and Bucks FA. And the last one is every team has a coach with an FA coaching qualification. Again, that would be the FA level 1 in most cases, or above FA level 2. Now, the way that we would look at a qualification or see what qualifications clubs have is a useful tool for you guys to know, if you don't already know how to do it, is to get up your qualification record. This is a qualification record from my club, St Edmunds, based in Abingdon. And I'll just come out of the presentation quickly to show you how to find this in case you've never done it before. So it's hopefully everyone has access to whole game system. And when you log on, this will be the screen that you're greeted with. So if you go onto your role as a secretary, as a chairman, as any committee member, it should be one of the options at the top. I'm the Chartered Standard Coordinator for St Edmunds, so I can click on this and it brings me up to this screen. I simply go on to Team Officials, and if I click this button, once it loads, if I click this button here, I should get a download. Can sometimes take a little bit, in the bottom left hand corner. And if I was to open that qualification at the bottom, I would get this document. So just to explain, I've redacted the personal information on this qualification record. Let me just go onto the screen, sorry. Just because there's fan numbers and dates of birth. So this would list all the coaches for St Edmunds, and this would show me if a club has met some of those criteria. So if you can see, the first column that I want to highlight is the enhanced DBS check. So every single one of these coaches has a date in this column, which shows me that they have a DBS. So that's the first thing that I would look at. If there was any gaps there, then that coach would require a DBS. To get a DBS, please get in touch with your welfare officer. If for any reason your welfare officer doesn't know the DBS process, then feel free to get in touch with me and I'll be able to explain that process. Now, what I would next do is go over to the team name screen. Now, it does sort these by age group, but unfortunately, it doesn't always sort them in the same team. So if you can see St Edmunds Royals under 8s, and then there's 2 of the same club down here. It's a bit annoying, but it gives me all the information. I just have to make sure that we're there. So if we take this first club, first team, St Edmunds under 8 Royals, you can see that this coach here doesn't have a coaching qualification, doesn't have a first aid, doesn't have a safeguarding, but does have a DBS. That's fine right now, because if you look above and at the top, that is the same team. It's the same team name there. They do have that qualification with one of their coaches within their team. So the under 8 Royals is absolutely fine. Under 8 St Edmunds, again, is absolutely fine. You will notice this person is highlighted in kind of a mustardy colour. That's simply because their qualification will expire in the next 6 months. So they should start looking at renewing that qualification. So I would go through every single one of your teams to make sure that all named coaches have a DBS, and that somebody assigned to that team has a safeguarding qualification and a first aid qualification. So just to put another example out there, this coach here, this is in red because it has expired. So that shows me they don't currently have an in-date safeguarding, but they do have a DBS. So I quickly look to see if the Lionesses have any other coaches named, which they do at the end. And then I can see that they do have all the criteria in place. So again, that team would be accepted. If this club was to apply just based on that qualification record, they would pass the charter standard, because every single team has a DBS for every coach, safeguarding and first aid, and a coaching qualification for every single team. So the first thing I always ask clubs to do before looking at their qualification record or starting to correct it if there are some people expired, is to ensure that every single coach that's named on there actually coaches that team. They're not old members of coaching staff that haven't coached in the last couple of years, and that anyone that is currently coaching is added to this qualification record, so that this lists all the true coaches for your club. So hopefully that explains a little bit how we go through that qualification record. Unfortunately, we're currently in a lockdown. So as you will see, COVID-19 has impacted on the FA and county FA's ability to offer face-to-face education. So whilst long-term plans are being made to offer alternative sustainable delivery models, it's necessary to make temporary changes for the 2021 season. So I'm now going to bring in Rich, who, as well as being a football development officer, he also heads up the education for Bucks and Bucks, to explain what the interim criteria is, because whilst we can't meet face to face and do the FA level 1, the first aid or the safeguarding, we have interim alternative methods so you can still attain charter standard status this season. So Rich, are you there?
Oh, hi John, yeah, thanks for that. Good evening everyone, hope everyone is well. So yeah, as John just touched on there, I'll just talk you through next few minutes some of the alternative measures in place at this period of time. So the FA released an update, and that's on our website as well if you want to view that, but an update regarding coach education. But yeah, one of the courses that is impacted, and obviously we've not run any course since mid-March, so which has obviously been difficult for all parties involved. But yeah, the interim measure is the FA Playmaker course. So this was always going to be introduced by the FA anyway. So it's sort of a like entry point for volunteers. It's scheduled to take 4.5 hours. It's accessible online. It's free of charge. So if this is for any like new volunteers into the game, or obviously people that may not have done a qualification before, so you would just log on to that, and I believe John's sending out these slides for the links after the meeting, so you'll be able to click on that. But yeah, log in with your FAN and password if known. If not, you can just reset your password. But yeah, it's a really introductory course covering safeguarding as part of it, making football sessions fun, and just a real nice introduction. It's online, so you can come in, do a module, leave it for a week, whenever it's around you. So highly recommend that. Just move on to the next slide, Jonathan. So from a safeguarding point of view, so as John alluded to a moment ago, anyone whose safeguarding workshop qualification has expired, that is still accessible online. You can renew it. So if it's expired, you can renew online, again for free, by clicking the link through the FA Learning page, which is on there. So that's not changed, so you can still access that. So for example, on John's list a moment ago, you had a few in that mustard colour. That was really well put, John, by the way. Those individuals can access that course and renew it anytime between 6 months prior to that. The Safeguarding for All course, which you can see in the second paragraph there, it's a new course. It's actually part of the Playmaker course, but the FA have now segregated it due to obviously the pandemic. And what this is again an introduction to safeguarding, and it's an interim measure. So this is completion of that for any new coaches in terms of becoming a charter standard club can use this as an interim measure to become safeguarding qualified. And John, that's for until the annual health check. Is that right, isn't it?
Yeah. So all the interim measures. So if you don't have an FA level 1 and you take the Playmaker course, that will award you charter standard status. But when the annual health check has to be renewed, which is generally in March of your next season, so this would be March 2022. You would then have had to have attended the safeguarding workshop face to face and also attain FA level 1 as well. So yeah, that's it. The interim measures will cover you until your first annual health check, when it's expected that those coaches who are outstanding have then attained the qualification that's needed.
Cool, thank you, John. Next slide, please. So just touching on the first aid. So again, as John said, we can't do first aid courses at the moment. But again, what the FA have done is some interim measures. So there's 2 online modules. That's the FA concussion guidelines and the sudden cardiac arrest. Both are online, both are free. I've completed both personally. It's very knowledgeable and informative. It just takes you through those 2 specific injuries and some best practices and some learnings as well. So again, as John just said, these are an interim measure for clubs that want to become charter standards, so coaches can still access that as long as it's then a first aid course is then completed prior to the annual health check.
This is also best practice for anyone who does have an in-date first aid. These are 2 really good courses, which may not have been covered in any massive depth during that face-to-face or first aid recertification. You can't read. First aid always has to be done face-to-face, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So they're just added best practices, even if you do have that qualification. I highly recommend both courses as well.
Yeah, great point. Next slide. So just an overview of the course update, as I just said at the beginning of my talk there. So the FA announced through us, we announced via the FA and our website last week that They're currently doing a new 4-year strategy of FA education. So what they've said is in April 2021, those 3 courses, so the FA Level 1, Safeguarding Children Workshop, and Introduction to First Aid in Football, aka Emergency First Aid, will be launched. They will also be taking full responsibility delivering coach education as well under this 4-year strategy. What that looks like at the moment is to be confirmed, but obviously we'll update clubs, leagues, and players, etc., through our website. And just at the bottom there, if anyone in your clubs is currently working towards a qualification, we have stayed in contact with all in-flight learners who have been affected by the pandemic and the cancellation of courses. So anyone who may be halfway through level 1 or level 2, etc., we'll get in contact with them in early December, subject to government guidance there. Hopefully, it looks like we will be coming out of the lockdown. But and then we're just given different options. So we certainly will carry on supporting them into next year and to get them through their qualification that they're on. Next slide. And just a little, I suppose, FYI in terms of big coaches. So we've got a register interest links. So what this does basically for any courses, all the list of courses that we have on our website, coaches or volunteers can register their interest and then be notified of upcoming courses. So if you just head to our website there, again, the link will be available to you. And you might want to do it as secretaries or within our chairpersons or other roles in your club as well, just so you can keep an idea on when courses are and then reach out to your coaches. But yeah, it's a good handy way of being kept up to date.
Yeah, I will send this presentation to everyone who's on tonight first thing tomorrow morning. So don't worry about writing down all the links right now. You can just click through once you've got the presentation.
It's a long link to write
down.
Yeah, I know. Just a couple of things just to finish on from my point of view. So there is ongoing coach development. So as you can imagine, at this time it is electronic and it's definitely virtual. But the FA Boot Room is a great resource for coaches. So head there. Again, the link's there. But yeah, lots of interviews, sessions from videos from FA coaches. So really useful. We had our own one over the summer, so we held over 40 webinars ourselves. Lots of content and great guests. So I'd recommend going to our online coaching program in the middle there. And our CPD program or coach development program will be coming out in 2021, hopefully January, fingers crossed, and for the foreseeable or for the rest of that season as well. So just keep an eye on our website. And I think there's one more slide for me, John.
Yeah.
And just to signpost you, really, another great resource is our Grassroots Football Coach podcast. So we've done 3 series now. I think it's 32 episodes available. Just something different for people that maybe learn through listening and just want to have a little listen to football, really. And so our host Mark Rivers there speaks to grassroots coaches all the way to pros in the game or ex-pros. So really good resource as a coach there. And that's that, Jonathan.
Great. Thank you very much, Rich. So just conclude the application process so you know what happens if you were to make an application. So to apply, it's very simple. All you do is send all the documents to BBFA and I'm the lead officer for Charter Standard, so that is my email address. You can send it piece by piece and I just put it in a folder with your name on it, or it's obviously much easier for me if you just send it all as one email. So what we would be those 3 things that we would review. So the first thing that I would do as the lead officer for Charter Standard was to review all the submitted evidence to make sure that you're affiliated, have a team playing in the league, have a club bank account because you would have sent us a piece of paper with your bank and club name on it, and then all those documents that we went through on that slide. So I would tick box, make sure that on that side that you are compliant with all of those things. And then review your qualifications as well to ensure that each of your teams have those things in place: DBS, first aid, safeguarding, and coaching qualification. So that's generally what you would have to do. Once you apply and have given me all that information, I do 3 things. I then will contact the leagues that your club participate in. That may be a couple of leagues. You may participate, have teams in different leagues. So I get in touch with them and I just ask them one question. For any reason, is there anything that would prevent us from awarding charter standard to your club? In the brief time that I've been doing charter standard, I haven't had any leads come back and say no, that isn't something that we could support. They've always said, yeah, we'd love to have the club as charter standard. The next two are internal members of staff at BBFA. I get in touch with our football investigations officer, who submits feedback regarding the club's discipline. So once again, charter standard is a kite mark for well-run, well-disciplined clubs. So if there is, for any reason, any worries about discipline, a club may not be awarded charter standard. This generally has to be quite a serious breach of discipline, not outstanding yellow cards or stuff like that. Maybe an ongoing discipline issue that hasn't been resolved. So we generally ask for, again, feedback from that officer. And again, I asked, is there any reason why I can't award this club charter standard? And the final check that I do is get in touch with our designated safeguarding officer and ask them for feedback regarding welfare issues. So again, if there's any outstanding unresolved welfare issues within the club, again, more on the serious side, that's probably been elevated to the FA's central team at Wembley, that might be also a reason that charter standard status might not be awarded until that issue has been resolved, and the designated safeguarding officer, who is just been appointed in the last couple of weeks, Natasha, well, she gives me a green light, again asking the question, is there any reason why I cannot award charter standard to the club that's applying? So once that is all green lighted, and I haven't received any feedback to say otherwise, charter standard status will be awarded to the club. I do that from my end. I then get it verified by the FA, which doesn't normally take long at all, normally the same day. And again, if they just review my work, hopefully I haven't made a mistake, once then they've given the green light, it will then be awarded on your whole game system. It will say that the club has now achieved charter standard status. It will give you the date that it has been awarded. And then generally in the next, it was 2 weeks prior to lockdown. I believe it's more kind of 3 weeks now. You will get a confirmation email from the FA, which will give you that information on the digital assets that will be sent to you. It'll ask for an address for basically the welcome pack to be sent to you. And in that welcome pack, you get your footballs, you get a certificate, you also get a nice plaque saying that you are a charter standard club. And that normally gets sent to you throughout the season. Again, there are a few delays this year because of the lockdown. Generally, all the fulfillment of equipment and those welcome packs are not being sent during lockdown. It's either after lockdown you would receive it if it's something you did in the next day or so, applied for. It generally takes, and Christmas, it probably would be the new year at this point. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of information about the evidence that we would require, but also what happens to the application, what we do once we receive it, and how charter standard status has been awarded. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for any questions. Rich, I don't know if we got any questions in the chat.
Tracy's typing, so we'll just wait. I just forgot to point out, John, that those interim qualifications do not show on a whole game system.
Yeah, so that is a really good point. So so if you're missing, for any reason, you're missing anything on this qualification record, and your coach would then fulfill one of the interim measures, so they don't have an FA level 1, but they complete the playmaker, it will not show up on this qualification. However, myself and Rich do have the ability to see that on our end. So when you apply, and I may see that a qualification isn't in order, you might just want to write a note saying that this coach has taken the FA Playmaker, or both of the first aid courses, or they've done the Safeguarding for All qualification. If you're unsure if they've done that, again, I'm able to see that, so we can just have a conversation about one of the coaches, and I can go into their record to see if they've completed that. If they haven't, it'd just be a case of going back, reminding them to complete the online course. And I believe, Rich, they also do get a certificate at the end of it. Is that correct?
Yeah, like a digital PDF. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can send that in as well, but we can see it on our side. So if you tell me they have that qualification, I can quickly just check on their fan number and see that they've got qualification. So, Rich, is there any questions?
Yeah, just a question from Tracy. She says, we only have one team and our coach is partway through the coaching course, just a day and a half to go, but with Oxfordshire FA, as there were no suitable dates with ourselves. Do you know if they will be sending out details of the options to complete this course? Yeah, Tracy, they should be in exactly the same position as us in terms of the next steps. So I would certainly just touch base with Oxfordshire FA to see, in particular, that coach on where he can, or where he or she can finish that course. So yeah, exactly the same position as we are. If you need any contact details or anything, just let us know and we can sort that out for you.
Yeah, and also the only thing I'd add to that is that if you're looking to apply pretty quickly, or just best practice, they can still take those interim measures as well, and then obviously complete the qualification when it does come available.
Cool, thank you, Tracy.
Any other questions? Feel free to use the chat function, or you can unmute yourself and ask it.
So there's a little raised hand as well at the top in case anyone wants to use that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How are we looking there, Rich? Everything answered?
Tracy's typing, so we'll just give Tracy a moment. No pressure, Tracy. There you go. You can see the question now, John. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So can I ask what age group is no longer youth? So anything under 18 and below. So under 16s would be a youth team. So that coach would need to have DBS, you'd need to have the safeguarding qualification. The adults start under 19 and above. I'm guessing that says okay.
There we go.
Any other questions? Again, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to. Got a couple of questions, I see.
Oh, yes, Robert, yes, we can.
Yes, so that's Dejupin, I'm guessing. If you send me or Rich an email with the fan numbers that might be duplicate, we can basically merge them down into one.
Yeah, seems to be a common problem, that one.
It's
some coaches with 3 or 4. And
yeah, so the record's 8, Robert. So yeah,
yeah. We'll keep working on it.
Yeah, it's a nationwide problem, really. It's just you think like the last 20 years, fan numbers obviously probably introduced prior to that, but from the days you used to buy England tickets using the new fan number, and different players play for different teams, it's just culminated in that. So yeah, if you have more than one coach, just send us through the details. We're happy to merge them for you, and obviously the qualifications, if there are any, will merge into that as well. So no worries at all.
Yeah. Okay, I see a question from Steve. Thanks. What's the difference for senior application, or if part of the same club, is it included as youth and senior? So the key difference between youth and senior is the DBS's safeguarding children policy. So that's why I mentioned that if you are a club with both youth and adult teams, you must meet the criteria of the youth qualification, because that encompasses everything it does in the adult. The adult wouldn't need DBSs for all the coaches. They are also not required to have coaching qualification. they are required to have first aid, and that is it for qualifications, unless they have players aged 16 and 17. Any adult team with 16 and 17 will then have to have a DBS as well as a safeguarding children policy. So hopefully that answered the question. But if you're a club with both youth and adult teams, you attain youth status, and that automatically gives your adult teams charter standard status as well. Excellent.
Hope you're well, Steve. Spoke to you for a while. Hope you're well, mate.
Does anyone have any final questions for me whilst we're here?
Yeah, it's Rob again. I'll ask this one rather than type it because it might be clearer. In the South Bucks Mini Soccer Conference, a football fixture will be 2 teams of 5 aside playing against another club's 2 teams of 5 aside. And the same when we get to under 7 aside. I assume that for this purpose, for the qualification, I only need 1 qualified coach.
So so if I can just bring up no, not that one. If I bring up the qualifications. So so Robert, to answer your question, if a coach is named on this, they have to meet those qualifications. Now, 1 coach can be named to up to 4 teams. So if your 1 coach is the only named coach for 4 teams, then yes, he can do that. If he's named for 5 or above, then we would need to see somebody else named for that team. So yeah, 1 coach can be named for multiple teams.
Okay, on our affiliation, we would just call it Wendover Junior Football or Wendover Juniors. They go along to the fixture with 2 teams, as I say, of 4, but they are just affiliated as 1 team. And then if we have that repeated, because we've got 4 5-a-side teams, then there'll be a Wendover Juniors and a Wendover Colts. So, but yeah, we will have the right qualifications then.
Yeah, so for me, as someone who would then be looking at charter standard, all that would say is Wendover under 8s, for example.
Yeah.
And there'll just be 1 coach there, and then I would look at their qualifications. Now, if you affiliated 2 or 3 teams there, then each of those teams would have to have a coach with those qualifications. But if there's maybe 2 or 3 teams, it can be the same coach.
So 1 coach can do 4 teams.
Yeah, correct.
Is that across age groups as well? Assuming,
yeah.
say, for example,
for example, I am the coach of the under 8 inclusive, an under 12 inclusive, and an under 16 inclusive team with St. Ed's. There's a second page that I had to crop so you could see it.
Yeah.
So I coach 3 teams within this club, and I'm the only coach named for that team. But obviously, because I have all my qualifications, that meets the needs of charter standard.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. Any final questions? Okay, guys, I want to thank you for coming. I kept my promise and kept this under the hour. If you, for any reason, weren't comfortable asking a question, I will be available tomorrow morning. Feel free to get in touch. You can email me. Hopefully I've sent you enough emails that you have that by now. And also you can give me a call. If there are any clubs out there that would like to make an application, I've hopefully given you all the information via the last email, but it is open. Clubs can do it. You can give me a call and we can work through any applications, but hopefully that's given you enough information to get started.